Thanks, Graham. You do always exaggerate a bit, but I'm really happy to be here today and see such a wonderful crowd of like-minded people, and it's obviously that you're like-minded, otherwise you wouldn't be here with the conditions you're suffering over in this state at the moment. But the whole lot of the talkers that have spoken today, and they've all been good, starting with Ian Sinclair, then James and Roger Fletcher and David Hopkins and my old friend David Pethick and Mark Ingalls. There's been a story behind that, and I just want to reiterate that because they've stolen all my thunder. But the whole reason why the lamb market now is where it is because of innovation. We go back to 2003, and you've heard Roger say that 30% of the returns, and James the same, said 30% of the returns was from meat and 70% of the return was from wool. But we've completely changed that around now, and I'd say it's 50-50 or 60% meat and 40% wool, but the last few weeks of the wool market might have done a bit to that too. But if we tried to change farmers, it's bloody near impossible, and I'm one of them. You have to give them the proof of what you're trying to get them to change to is something that they can manage and do themselves. Because if you're not going to give them the proof, they're not going to do it. We had an abattoir, as has been said, in Narrogin, and we were suffering because of the perception of the merino sheep, and most of the lambs in Western Australia come out of merino ewes, and we were a byproduct of the wool industry, and the consumer didn't like the merino meat to eat. So what we had to do was convince the farmers to change their ways, to do something right, and then give the consumers exactly what they want. You give the consumers exactly what they want and money doesn't become a part of it. We've gone from $1.70 a kilo in 2003 and the 15 years before that to $6 plus at the moment. And don't think it's all good luck. It's been good management and it's been innovation. We realised that we needed to do something different with the way we were running the sheep and the way we're putting them through. So as has been said, we started with to explain to farmers. We had a feedlot on the farm which had a walkover weighing in it. And the actual lambs had to walk over the scales and go to feed and then turn around and walk through a one-way gate to go back to water. Every time they went over the scales, their weight was recorded, the time they went over, and it was a lesson for us to be able to then say to the cockies that, listen, we've put your 3 sheep through the feedlot, they've had RFID tags in them, and this is what we found. What we found, there was 3 things. There's nutrition, genetics and environment, which run our lambs. Firstly, genetics. We found that lambs from a certain farm were just as much variation as lambs from different farms. We found that some of the lambs in the herded do 195 to 250 grams a day, and some of their brothers and sisters would do 270 to 320 grams a day. And we also found that if we fed them right, it was a complete change. We found that we had to have a ration with 13% energy and approximately the same with protein. And if we did that, we found that the growth rate was fantastic. We also found that if we use selenium in a high dose of selenium, because Western Australia is selenium deficient, a good dose of vitamin E as they went into the feedlot, and sometimes if you thought a shot of B12 would go well. The other thing that we found out that they were better if they were close to off shears. We found that it was a huge difference. We even put rumen boluses in some of the sheep to find out what the temperature was like inside there on a hot day. And as the previous speaker or the one before said, the internal temperature in those sheep in a hot day in the sun can get as high as 50 degrees. And when they do that, they won't eat for 24 hours. And if you get 3 days 37 degrees plus, they won't eat at all. And that's, you get a huge loss. We had an eco shelter we put in there plus trees, and that made a huge difference. But when we locked them up out in the direct sunlight, they stopped eating. We also found that they won't, if they've got a water trough and they get a dust film on top, they won't drink. So it's most important every day you clean that trough, because they don't drink, they don't eat. It makes it very difficult. When we had the ear tags in the sheep, it was obvious that in the slaughter process they lose their head fairly on in the way. So once they've lost their head, obviously we've lost that tag, and so we had to do something about that. So we designed up a system that read the tag and then transposed the number off the tag onto the gamble that they were hanging on, and when they went through the works you could then go to the boning room and we had those sheep identified. So it was pretty important, otherwise it was hopeless. And it was fantastic that we were able to get the growth rates up over 400 grams a day with the right environment and rations. A lot of them averaged 380 to 400, and the real good sheep were above that. One of our farmers was the top in lamb plan, Bob Duff and his brother Alan, and we had trouble with his blackface because they were always coming through with 25 to 30 millimetres of back fat. They were beautiful eating sheep, so we got them to change it and then put some textiles into the system, and that was a brilliant idea because it brought them down into line. The market really wanted those sheep. They were prepared to pay for it. In the Middle East, we were able to win the competition over there for sheep meat eating quality, and it was all about being lambs that were 22 kilos and 11 to 14 millimetres of fat. We've heard about the electrical stimulation. That's a unit similar to Roger's, and I can't claim to be the first. He beat me by a few weeks. But the work that Dave Pethick did with us in the abattoirs was surmountable in getting that eating quality to be right. If you overstimulate the sheep, you get height shortening, and we also found out that whilst I thought if you build a refrigeration for your works, that the refrigeration would get it as cold as quick as possible. Well, then we found out that it was cold shortening, because we had to get the pH to be at 6 when the temperature was at 10 degrees C. So we had to modify the temperature decline in the chillers, and we had to put in extra defrost cycles. And once we did that, we had a real truly eating project. That was the work that David did, and with the pH decline, etc. From there, we were able to convince farmers then to use the feed that we were using, to use the right sort of rations, and to then change the genetics. We tried to change the genetics, and we went to some of the sales around the country, and we took Q lamb stickers and put on the rams that we thought were the right ones. That lasted 2 weeks, because those Q lamb representative rams made $700 average more than the others. So they couldn't sell the others, so the agent stopped me from doing it. So I had to walk around and put stickers everywhere and tell them, this one's right. I put it on the yard. Then they found that out, so they pissed me off quick. The other thing we've already spoken about today is the consumer. If we don't give the consumer what they want, they won't buy it. There's that many options out there for them that they can go and get with it. And if the kids at home get something that's tough, and they say to their mum, this is too bloody tough, we don't like this, well, you can bet your life she won't feed them lamb chops for another 3 to 5 weeks. And we did that sort of survey with supermarkets to find out what went on. And she'd get a kilo of lamb chops at the moment, it's $30. She can buy 6 kilos of mince for that, 3 kilos of sausages, 2 chooks, or whatever. And that's what happens. But if you give them what they want and the kids enjoy it, well, they're going to keep coming back. But innovation is something that has to keep on going. You people that are sitting around this room have got to make up your mind, how are we going to do that? How are we going to chase things up? How are we going to get an organisation to keep carrying forward this innovation? Because if we don't carry it forward, we can go back to where we were very quick. And yeah, I'd love to talk to you for another 2 hours, but I ain't got the time. They're blowing the bell, so thanks very much.